Hey, welcome back to the channel, A Heart Like Esther's. And this is another continuation from how God saved me from witchcraft and destiny swapping. My neighbor was a witch. So I left off at part 11, um, and I was in my first place where I relocated from, or to, back home. And I left off, you know, where I was still struggling. By this time, my struggle for survival, um, it had become even more intense. And I started researching everything relating to like fighting fungi and parasites, because that's what I thought my issue was. Um, I was having a lot of gut issues that was just affecting my entire body, specifically my skin and my gut. Um, and I wanted to mention that, like, I was dealing with a spiritual illness that it it mimicked the symptoms of someone who would have like HIV, maybe AIDS, even though I hadn't been with anyone for 4 years before connecting with the gentleman that I was dating when I was there, when I was back home for 3 years on and off. I referred to him as a shapeshifter. I had like that scary incident that happened. Um, with him, or something that I just saw that just frightened me. With whom, I dated him off and on for 3 years. And after like walking away from that situation in 2017, I remained single for almost 4 years. Um, yeah, about 3.5 years. And uh, I wasn't a person who like got around town, stayed to myself, and I didn't have many relationships in my life. But after receiving like my health insurance cards, I finally selected a primary care doctor and encouraged, my doctor to conduct like a blood panel. I wanted to understand what was happening to my body. The test results showed I was in good health, except for a high white blood cell count, which every doctor seemed to ignore. I knew this before I left up north. Um, and to me, this count indicated, I'm not a healthcare professional, but I do my research. I don't rely on everything they say. But it indicated that my body was fighting something. And I was just eager to identify what that something was. So I felt like I was dying. I was going through it, just out of nowhere. I was always in good health. I wasn't like a bodybuilder or anything, but I was in really good health. Physically fit for my age, and even while I was eating extremely healthy, I cut out all the sugar and carbohydrates, fearing that, I could be feeding the parasites, because that's what I thought it was. And I started like incorporating plenty of fermented foods and fermented drinks into my diet, like things like kimchi and sauerkraut, and eating a lot of cabbage, period. Just a lot of fermented stuff. Although I've never indulged in sodas, and I have always consumed a lot of water. Now I find myself at that time monitoring my pH levels and adding, alkaline and distilled water to my routine. So, but it just got overwhelming. I began to notice that I was now becoming constipated. It went from diarrhea to constipation. And I just wonder why there was nothing in my diet that I would, that would cause this issue. And to address it, I started drinking like the senna teas. Um, but that they didn't work. So one day I just decided to buy like the enema. I know again that's too much information. And after using it, I still struggled to have a bowel movement. However, when I finally did go, what came out was alarming. It was the same strange mucus substance that, resembled like these little mucoid creatures that, had somehow found their way into my colon and intestines. Um, I was unsure of like where they were coming from, but I knew I needed to find out and I needed to stop or inhibit the growth. So, I just started taking various herbs and supplements. When these things emerged from my body, they appeared in large balls, like they were like similar to golf balls. And that's why it was difficult for me to like pass it. It was just terrifying. So, despite all my efforts, no doctor could diagnose this issue. Like I found myself arguing with doctors because, now they have a record of me. Even I even brought my records from back home, my medical records. And no one, like, they're still looking at me like I'm crazy, like this is all in my head. But I provided every type of stool sample available. I would initiate these things because I was determined to, get a result, a good one at that. But for some strange reason, the results would always come back negative. There was nothing at all. I felt like I was an animal being inhibited by like these living things feeding off my nutrients. No matter how well I took care of myself, I still felt awful every day. Some days all I wanted to do was just lie there and do nothing. I was extremely exhausted mentally and especially physically, and I just felt utterly defeated. While going through all of this stuff, I was still engaged in spiritual warfare, throughout my days, but especially at night. It was so intense that like I couldn't forget to put on my armor every day, even noon and night, especially night. And it became a ritual for me. Um, I even had to, like, I started learning that I should, my prayer should definitely be like between the 12 a.m. Even if I was sleeping, I needed to get up and start praying because that's when they'd be doing all their wickedness, their rituals and blood sacrifices and stuff like that during the witching hours. And so I forgot to mention too that I anointed my entire apartment before even sleeping in it. When I received my keys, um, it was only like a 680 square feet apartment, like a one bedroom. And I purchased like the cleaning supplies that same evening, along with that mattress, the air mattress, and the side little folding table thing. I went over there and cleaned that place before I actually, slept in there. And I had my tablet, which had the King James Version ebook. So I would play that, like the audible part, like so that it could, like, speak the words out loud. And I just anointed every inch of that place. Um, every, like, window, closet, the doorposts, the walls, every point of entry in that home. Additionally, I even poured it like um, down the drains and kitchen sink, bathroom sink, the bathtub, the toilets. Yeah, I was deeply entrenched in spiritual warfare at this time. Luckily, I was teleworking, which allowed me to stay home most of the time. I would often like have my camera off during meetings, joining with just my photo and my name because I was beat. You know, I looked at that time like what I was going through. When I never liked a whole lot of makeup unless I was going to a certain event or something. But these things, these like lesions all over my face, my upper body, my just yeah, it just made me feel like very, my it took away my confidence and brought on these insecurities. But as months went by, like it reached December, like, and I started to feel a little better. However, I still didn't like take action against the spells and the curses that were affecting me because I still didn't know, like, when I felt like a headache coming on or felt confused or, occasionally felt any strange sensations. Like I used to feel something pinching me or pricking me as if a needle were poking me. I even had dreams where someone was chasing me, trying to inject me with a needle. And it all pointed to witchcraft, but I didn't know this. And I believe the Lord was trying to reveal to me what was happening in the spiritual realm. I didn't know that I had the gift of seeing because I started like, and I was having these dreams before, but I didn't know. I didn't know. And around this time, I began to notice other troubling manifestations in my life, such as like, my finances. I felt as though these witches were spiritually robbing me, blocking my progress, towards financial success. Despite my strong performance at work, I sensed that people didn't like me. Things were being sabotaged, which further hindered my career advancement. No matter how hard I worked, I was always critiqued and noticed that I was being used to do others' work, including my bosses, without receiving any credit, and like the new people I would meet instantly rejected me. I just found myself losing, losing in every area, especially financially. Everything, my expenses, something always arise. The bill just, it just got really bad. And it always seemed like something was coming up, like something. Something needed to be fixed, something, a bill out of the blue, a credit card, you know, just it was always something. And I had numerous doctor's appointments and, herbalist visits, which resulted in the out of pocket expense and copays that, added to my financial burdens. So I have taken a substantial pay cut when I moved to the South back home, from the Northeast. And I have been making more money up, from up north. However, with all the darkness in my life, I just didn't care about the money. I just wanted, to see some light at the end of the tunnel. I knew I had to survive. I had to make a reasonable amount of money, but yeah, I needed a change of scenery and thought it would be better and safer for me, for my well-being, and my mental space, just to return home. But when reconnecting with people from my past or crossing paths with them. It seemed like everyone who came into my life only did so to benefit from me. So back then I didn't understand that everything was designed this way. The root work, and the witchcraft work aimed against me to break me. It was all spiritual. And most people in the world lack the spiritual insight, and such as me, to see through, what was going on. Um, I couldn't even see through the fog, and I couldn't hear from the Lord. And other people who's in the world who don't have the spiritual insight, they can't either. They can't see what spirits are operating in someone's life. But things still begin to shift for the worse. I still felt the strange sensations moving in my body now. They moving like all in my eyelids, my nose, my neck, my shoulders, my forearms, particularly the like meaty parts of my arms. My body was transforming, and I, didn't want to go out. I felt so isolated and very lonely, because I was inside most of the time. I didn't have to go out. I didn't go out if I didn't have to, So um, the only people I would normally keep in touch with was my son. And, of course, my coworkers, I had to, had to interact with them, you know. And unfortunately, people were like starting to gossip about me without even knowing me. It just was very hurtful at that time. In addition to what I was, going through in silence, my skin was just horrible. It resembled that of someone who, would have HIV, the lesions and other unsettling symptoms. That time was a very distressing experience for me. I was in distress, to say the least. I was overworked at work, even while teleworking, and like I mentioned, I was underpaid because I took a cut, and this was the government. But they, in the South, they don't pay that well, and my health was suffering because I was working like overtime on weekends, and you know, I was new, and I just wanted to, perform well and just not try to do too much extra, but I was, and I just noticed people were taking advantage of it. But I had to keep working in order to pay my bills. I wasn't married, I was single, and I didn't expect my son, I don't want to impose on him. He's young and out doing his thing. And I just, it just got really bad that I eventually started looking for remote work because I just noticed a lot of things they were doing started to get shady, and it was just so hurtful that like everyone I come in contact with is now doing me dirty. They I found out like they were they had changed my performance evaluation in order not to give me an increase, and that right there was like, where I draw the line. And you already not paying me anything, but everyone's getting the increase except me, and I'm working the most. I'm implementing things that I'm bringing from, my job, my career from up north, and I'm just feeling like I'm working, for nothing, and I just couldn't take it any longer. So I had, I've been with this organization now for like 2 years, and I was just feeling stuck, you know, and stagnant. So yeah, 2 years had passed, and it's a lot that went through that I've probably not mentioning, but that I can't think of right now at the moment as I'm speaking. But I just decided that, I needed to go. Everyone was evolving, and I was stagnant, and I just felt used for my talents and unappreciated. So finally, I found another job. I was interviewing on the side, during my lunch breaks and, whenever I could. And I found a job opportunity. I was searching, overseas and, everywhere. But I found this opportunity in the same state I had just left. But, the salary is good there, of course. And I just decided to, like, I had two offers and like three different interviews that I made it to the third round, but I accepted this one. I felt like this was a good fit, you know. And so I decided to um, submit my resignation, and that was that. So I just want to say that the black magic, witchcraft, root work, the voodoo that these women engage in often stem from unhealed trauma that they're going through rather than, doing their own healing. They harm others out of jealousy and their desire to that the light that they see in others. Um, Many of them, they inherit these skills from of the dark arts from their own family. um, I know someone before I was going through this, that like from a Latin culture, and like they were heavy in this stuff. We were kids, so I never paid any attention to it. And that's going to come back around later on in my story at the end. It's funny how the devil will use people. But yeah, a lot of them, they know that they are unable to receive their blessings because of all the wrongdoing they have done to others. So what they do is they try to steal your light, steal your star, steal your destiny, using tarot cards and psychics and mediums. They find out about you. So, you know, their motivation for connecting with people is trying to see, and then, they got demons attached to them. A lot of them are possessed by them, and they know who to seek out. And so, they cause a lot of harm and sickness due to their greed and their envy. And they seek out higher ranking root workers to summon demons and like to cast these intense curses to afflict you with spiritual infirmity. And these infirmities could mimic, all type of stuff, cancer, and which minds like mimic like autoimmune disease such as HIV. And all in all, it was just pure evil, to and they want to intend like cause premature death, in a way that doctors wouldn't be able to diagnose you, and that's what they were doing to me. And it was all spiritual in nature. Only God could intervene and heal me. But I want to thank everyone who's listening to these videos, and I hope you stay tuned to for every part of my story until the end. And it gets even crazier from here. Their spells start to manifest even faster. Everything in my life started to become more difficult. So tune in for the next episode. And I wish everyone, you know, good health and stay safe and prayed up in Jesus' name. Amen.